This is my 7-layer bean dip. It is a Tex-Mex favorite and on repeat at our house. So follow along and I'll show you step by step how to make this easy appetizer that everyone's going to love. Before we get started, here are the ingredients that we're going to need. It starts with 2 cans of beans, and you can use just about any variety. There's a kind that I like, it's called zesty salsa. It's the Rosarita beans. So anyway, they are so delicious, and I took them out of the can so that you didn't have to hear that. And then I have some salsa, just about any kind of salsa will do. And then for our layers, we're going to build flavor, and then also I'll show you a few step-by-step tricks on how to get like a really good texture. And then I have my shredded cheese. I have some pre-made guacamole. I also have a recipe for guacamole on my website if you want to make that from scratch. And then sour cream. And then my toppings, I like to do a little bit of red onions, some tomatoes, some green onions, and then also some black olives on top. So follow along and I'll show you step by step how to make this. Okay, so to get started, I like to mix the beans a little bit. So I have my refried beans, and then I'm going to add my salsa. And this is just going to thin the beans out a little bit so that it spreads really nice. You want it dippable. So when you dip a chip in, you don't want your chip to break. So we're going to get the right consistency here. And then I have a little bit of taco seasoning, and that taco seasoning is dehydrated spices. So we're adding it to the lettuce part of our recipe right here. This is the bean mixture. And then I'm just going to use a spoon and mix this all up until it's nice and the same consistency. I'm gonna add this to a 9 by 13 inch baking dish. So it makes enough for a crowd. And we love to take this to football games or, well, football watch parties. It's a great football food, or even just like a simple appetizer for a party. So it really is versatile, and I love it because you can make it ahead too. So I'm going to just spread it evenly into the bottom of the baking dish. One of the things I love about this recipe is that you're just like building layers of flavor. And then for the sour cream, it has a little bit of liquid in there, and that's good that you want that. The recipe calls for about 1.25 cups of sour cream. So we're just going to use that liquid, and actually I like to add a little bit more milk to my sour cream just to make it really light and, again, dippable with a tortilla chip. So just these few little tips really make a difference with this bean dip so that it's really easy to serve and easy to eat. And now I'm going to add my sour cream right on top of my bean mixture. Another thing that I really love about this recipe is it only takes about 15 minutes to compile. So it is so quick, make ahead. Okay, and the next layer is my guacamole layer. So this is a little bit harder to spread over the sour cream. So what I'm going to do is do a few dollops here. And this is maybe a little bit more than a cup, maybe 1.5 cups of guacamole. And this is chunky guacamole, but you could definitely make yours thinner if your kids or you don't like the chunks of guacamole. I mean, I like the little bit of chunks in there. I think it's really yummy. I like the little bit of texture, but whatever works for your family. I love like the versatility of this one. And then to finish this one off, I'm going to add cheese right there on top. And if you're making this really far in advance, you probably want to put the guacamole underneath the sour cream. Either way would be fine. Adding the toppings right before you serve it would probably be best. Okay, and then for my toppings, I like to do a little tomato. And my kids are okay with tomatoes if I leave them in big enough chunks, so they can pick them off. I'm just going to do a nice little dice here. The different tomatoes have a different water content. So like this is a Roma tomato, so it's not super juicy, it's more fleshy. But to keep your bean dip from having like water around the edges, you could place this on a paper towel for just a couple minutes before you add it to your bean dip, and that would help keep your bean dip nice and fresh too. Let it sit on a paper towel, and then that way some of the juice from that tomato will absorb into the paper towel. Also, you could add some pico to this too. That's a fun recipe variation, but again, if you drain some of that liquid off, it will help your bean dip stay a little bit more fresh. Okay, and then for the green onions, you probably only need a few of them. And I just like to cut the little ends off here. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of cilantro. I love some fresh cilantro. My brother-in-law thinks that it tastes like dish soap. So if I'm making this for him, I don't put cilantro on it. Okay, so our cilantro is nice and chopped up. And then the last thing I'm going to do is my red onion. This is another thing that you could leave off if your kids don't like onions. And then I probably just need like half of this, so like maybe a quarter of an onion. I like to go the long way and then stick it nice and tiny little minced. And then I also like to just put a little bit of fresh lime on top. Okay, I'm gonna start with my tomatoes, and they've had a chance to just drain here on this little paper towel. And I like to spread everything out as evenly as possible. This is also another great recipe that you can hand your kids the recipe and then the YouTube video, and they can actually make an easy appetizer for a family party because there's no cooking involved. My goal with all of my recipes is that my kids, even my young kids, can follow along and know how to make some things. And now for my red onion. That is so pretty. I probably chopped a little bit too much of that. I can save that for something else. There we go. If I get any big clumps, I just separate it. And then green onion, just so pretty. And then my cilantro. There we go. Okay, one more thing that I forgot to cut up was my olives. I'm just going to cut up my black olives, just a few slices on each one, and then we'll add them to... Okay, and one last item, we have our black olives. Here is my 7-layer bean dip. Look at all of those layers. There's like layers of the beans and the guacamole and the sour cream and the cheese, and then all those yummy little veggie bites on top. They are so delicious. And we will finish this off with just a little bit of lime juice, fresh lime juice. Just makes like such a great like little punch of flavor. Here is my 7-layer bean dip. We love to serve this with tortilla chips. Like these really thin ones are our favorite. They're just like crispy and they work so good to dip this. And I'm super excited to share this with you. All right, and now for the best part, the taste test. Oh, this really is like such a yummy appetizer. If you love bean dips, you gotta try this one. I think it's really the taco seasoning with the salsa and the beans that just gives this so much flavor. And actually, if it sits for a couple hours before you serve it, it is even better because then all that taco seasoning mixes in with that salsa and the beans. It is, so yummy. Thank you for watching this episode of The Carefree Kitchen. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me here, and I will show you all kinds of fun and easy recipes just like this 7-layer bean dip that your family will love. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.